Hey everyone, welcome back to English Podcast Center. It's so nice to have you here with us today. David, how are you feeling?
Hey everyone, I'm doing pretty well actually. Although, if I'm being honest, I've already spent half of today thinking about the weekend.
Really? The weekend is still a couple of days away.
I know, but every time work gets busy, my brain starts creating these amazing weekend plans. It's like my mind is trying to motivate me to survive the week.
That's actually very relatable. Sometimes on a Tuesday afternoon, I'll start imagining the perfect Saturday. I'll think about sleeping in, having a nice breakfast, reading a book, maybe going for a walk.
Exactly. And in my imagination, everything is perfect. The weather is beautiful, I'm productive, I'm relaxed, and somehow I become the best version of myself for 2 whole days.
Why do we always do that? Why do our future weekends look so much better than our real weekends?
That's a great question. Because last month, I planned what I called the perfect weekend. I even wrote everything down.
Oh no, whenever someone says they wrote everything down, I know a funny story is coming.
You should have seen this schedule. Wake up at 7, go for a run, clean the apartment, meet a friend for lunch, read a book, watch a movie, cook a healthy dinner, and somehow feel completely relaxed at the same time.
That sounds less like a weekend and more like a full-time job.
That's exactly what happened. By Saturday afternoon, I was already tired, and then I felt disappointed because I wasn't following my own plan.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. We spend so much time imagining the perfect weekend that we accidentally create pressure for ourselves.
Yes, instead of enjoying our free time, we're trying to manage it perfectly, and then we wonder why we're stressed.
You know what's interesting? Some of my favorite weekends weren't planned at all. Nothing special happened. I just felt relaxed and happy.
Same here. Some of my best memories came from random moments that weren't on any schedule.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're trying too hard to make every weekend amazing.
That's interesting. Because when I think about it, the weekends I remember most are usually the ones that surprised me, not the ones I carefully planned.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder about something. Why do our best weekend plans sometimes become our most disappointing weekends?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I think the answer might be more complicated than people expect.
I've been thinking about that question, and I wonder if expectations are part of the problem. The more we imagine a perfect weekend, the harder it becomes for reality to match it.
I completely agree. Sometimes I spend 5 days looking forward to Saturday, and then Saturday arrives and feels normal. Not bad, just normal.
And normal isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when we're expecting something amazing, normal can feel disappointing.
Exactly. A few months ago, I told myself I was going to have the most productive weekend of my life. I made a list with about 15 things on it.
15? David, that's not a weekend plan, that's a survival challenge.
Looking back, you're probably right. I wanted to clean my apartment, organize my files, exercise, learn a new skill, visit family, and start reading a book that had been sitting on my shelf for months.
Let me guess, by Sunday evening, half the list was unfinished?
Half? More like 80%. And instead of feeling proud of what I did accomplish, I focused on everything I didn't do.
That's such a common habit. We often measure our weekends by productivity instead of enjoyment.
That's true, and social media doesn't help either.
Oh, definitely not. You open your phone and suddenly everyone seems to be hiking in the mountains, traveling somewhere beautiful, or having brunch with 10 perfectly dressed friends.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting on my couch wearing the same t-shirt I've had on since breakfast.
Honestly, that sounds like a pretty comfortable weekend.
Thank you. I think so too. But sometimes it's easy to compare your ordinary weekend to someone else's highlight reel.
That's a great way to describe it. We compare our real life to someone's carefully selected moments.
And then we start thinking we're doing weekends wrong.
Which is funny because there isn't really a correct way to spend a weekend.
Exactly. Some people love having plans. Others just want to relax and see what happens.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I like having one or two things planned because it gives me something to look forward to, but I don't want every hour scheduled.
See, that's where we're a little different. I used to make detailed plans, but these days I prefer flexibility.
Really? What changed?
I realize that my mood changes throughout the week. On Friday, I might think I want to wake up early and be productive. Then Saturday arrives and all I want is an extra hour of sleep and a slow morning.
That's actually very reasonable. Sometimes the version of ourselves making plans isn't the version that shows up on the weekend.
Exactly. Friday David is very ambitious. Saturday David just wants coffee and peace.
I think a lot of listeners know exactly what you mean.
And honestly, some of my favorite weekends happened when plans changed unexpectedly. A friend called at the last minute. The weather changed, or I simply decided to do something different.
I can relate to that. One of my favorite weekends recently started with no plans at all. I ended up spending most of the day walking around the city, listening to music, and discovering a small bookstore I'd never visited before.
See, that's the kind of story I love. Nothing dramatic happened, but it sounds memorable.
It was. And the funny thing is, if I had followed a strict schedule, that day probably wouldn't have happened.
Maybe that's the secret. Maybe weekends aren't supposed to be perfect. Maybe they're supposed to leave room for surprises.
I like that idea, because when I think about the weekends that felt the best, they weren't necessarily the busiest or most productive.
Same here. The best weekends usually leave me feeling refreshed, not exhausted.
So maybe the real question isn't how much we accomplish, maybe it's something else.
Now I'm curious.
What actually makes a weekend feel good?
That's a great question, and I think the answer might be different for everyone.
You know, David, while we were talking, I realized there are a few phrases I use all the time when people ask about my weekend plans.
Oh, me too. And they're usually much simpler than people expect.
Exactly. Let's share a few of them with everyone. Maybe they'll sound familiar. One phrase I use a lot is, listen first. I haven't decided yet.
That's a good one. Sometimes people think they need a detailed answer, but honestly, not everyone has a plan. Now say it with us. Repeat. I haven't decided yet.
One more time. I haven't decided yet.
A very useful phrase for people like me who make plans at the last possible minute. Here's another phrase I say quite often. Listen first. I'm thinking about staying home.
I love that phrase. Staying home is becoming more popular every year.
Now say it with us. Repeat. I'm thinking about staying home.
One more time. I'm thinking about staying home.
And honestly, sometimes staying home is exactly what we need.
Here's a phrase that sounds friendly and positive. Listen first. That sounds like a good idea.
Oh, I use that all the time when friends suggest something.
Now say it with us. Repeat. That sounds like a good idea.
One more time. That sounds like a good idea.
It's simple, natural, and easy to use in many situations.
And it gives you a few extra seconds to think about your answer. Okay, here's another one. Listen first. I might meet some friends.
That's probably one of the most common weekend answers.
Now say it with us. Repeat. I might meet some friends.
One more time. I might meet some friends.
I like this phrase because it sounds flexible. You're not making a promise, you're just sharing an idea.
And here's our last phrase. Listen first. We'll see how it goes.
That's a classic.
Now say it with us. We'll see how it goes.
One more time. We'll see how it goes.
I think this phrase perfectly matches today's conversation.
Absolutely, because sometimes the best weekends happen when you stop trying to control every little detail.
You know what's funny? When we were younger, having no plans sometimes felt boring.
That's true. I used to think a good weekend had to be exciting. Something big had to happen.
And now?
Now, a quiet morning, a good cup of coffee, and a peaceful afternoon sound pretty exciting to me.
I completely understand that.
Maybe that's why so many adults struggle with weekend expectations. We think happiness has to look impressive.
When in reality, happiness often looks very simple.
Exactly. And honestly, if someone asked me about this weekend right now, I'd probably say, I haven't decided yet.
Really?
Yep, I might meet some friends, I might stay home, or maybe I'll just see how it goes.
And somehow that sounds like a pretty good plan.
I think so too. Sometimes leaving a little space for surprises is the best plan of all.
You know, David, listening to us talk about weekends makes me realize how much my idea of a perfect weekend has changed over the years.
Mine too. If you asked me 10 years ago what a great weekend looked like, my answer would be completely different.
Same here. When I was younger, I always wanted something exciting to happen. I wanted every weekend to feel special.
Exactly. I thought being busy was the same thing as being happy. If my weekend calendar wasn't full, I felt like I was missing out on something.
That's such a common feeling, especially when you're constantly seeing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, there was a period in my life when I couldn't relax without feeling guilty. Even if I had worked hard all week, sitting on the couch felt wrong somehow.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be watching a movie and part of my brain would be saying, you should be doing something useful right now.
I know that feeling. It's like you're physically resting, but mentally you're still working.
That's exactly it. And honestly, it was exhausting. I wasn't enjoying my work and I wasn't enjoying my weekends either.
That sounds difficult. When did things start to change?
I think it happened slowly. One weekend, I was sitting in a park with a coffee, doing absolutely nothing important. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful.
That's a beautiful moment.
It really was. Nothing exciting happened. No big achievement, no productive checklist, just a quiet afternoon.
And yet, you still remember it.
Exactly. That's what surprised me. I had spent years chasing exciting moments, but one of my happiest memories was incredibly simple.
I had a similar realization. A few years ago, I kept filling every free moment with activities because I thought that's what successful people did.
Interesting. What changed your perspective?
One weekend, I was completely exhausted. I had plans from morning until evening, and by Sunday night, I felt worse than I had on Friday.
Oh, wow. That's the opposite of what a weekend is supposed to do.
Exactly. And I remember asking myself a simple question. If I'm using my weekends to recover from work, why am I making my weekends feel like work too?
Wow, that's a really powerful question.
It changed how I think about free time. I started leaving space in my schedule, not because I was lazy, but because I needed room to breathe.
I love that. People often talk about managing time, but nobody talks enough about protecting energy.
That's such a good point. You can have free time and still feel exhausted if your energy never gets a chance to recover.
Exactly. And I think many adults are dealing with that right now. We're constantly connected. Messages, emails, notifications, news. Our brains rarely get a break.
Which is why a quiet weekend can feel surprisingly healing.
You know, something else changed as I got older. I stopped caring about whether my weekends looked interesting to other people.
That's a huge shift.
It really is. There was a time when I wanted stories to tell on Monday morning. Now, I just want to feel refreshed when Monday arrives.
Honestly, that's a sign of wisdom.
Or maybe just age.
Maybe both.
Probably both. But seriously, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that peace has value. For years, I thought happiness always looked exciting. Now I know happiness can also look quiet.
That's beautiful. And I think a lot of listeners will relate to that.
I hope so, because if someone feels tired, overwhelmed, or burned out, they don't necessarily need a more exciting weekend. They might just need a gentler one.
Exactly. Sometimes what we need most isn't adventure, it's permission to slow down.
I really like that. Permission to slow down.
And maybe that's why our definition of a perfect weekend keeps changing. As our lives change, our needs change too.
That's true. A perfect weekend isn't about following someone else's idea of happiness. It's about understanding what feels right for you at this moment in your life.
So now I'm curious. If you could design your perfect weekend today, not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago, but right now, what would it actually look like?
That's a surprisingly difficult question, and I think my answer says a lot about who I am today.
All right, David. Let's imagine a few everyday situations that might happen before the weekend.
Sounds good. These are the kinds of conversations most of us have all the time. Situation 1. Talking with a coworker on Friday afternoon.
Listen first.
Hey Anna, do you have any plans for the weekend?
Not really. I'm thinking about staying home and relaxing.
That sounds nice. I might go hiking if the weather is good.
Now say it with us.
Hey Anna, do you have any plans for the weekend?
Not really. I'm thinking about staying home and relaxing.
That sounds nice. I might go hiking if the weather is good. Honestly, if someone asked me that question today, my answer would probably change 3 times before Saturday.
That's very realistic. Situation 2. Making plans with a friend by phone. Listen first.
Hey, are you free this Saturday?
I think so. What do you have in mind?
A few of us are meeting for lunch. Would you like to join us?
Sure, that sounds like a good idea.
Now, say it with us. Hey, are you free this Saturday?
I think so. What do you have in mind?
A few of us are meeting for lunch. Would you like to join us?
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. I like conversations like that. Simple plans with good people are often the most enjoyable.
I agree. Sometimes lunch with friends is all you need. Situation 3. Talking with family.
Listen first.
What are you doing this weekend?
I haven't decided yet. We'll see how it goes.
Well, if you're free, come over for dinner on Sunday.
I'd love to. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, say it with us. What are you doing this weekend?
I haven't decided yet. We'll see how it goes.
Well, if you're free, come over for dinner on Sunday.
I'd love to. Thanks for inviting me. You know what's interesting? None of these conversations are complicated.
That's true. They're short, natural, and very common.
And they happen everywhere. At work, with friends, with family, almost every week.
Exactly. Sometimes people think daily conversations need to be interesting or impressive, but most real conversations are actually quite simple.
And that's what makes them meaningful. They're small moments that help us stay connected to other people.
I like that. A weekend plan isn't really about the activity, it's often about the people involved.
That's a wonderful way to think about it.
Because years later, we rarely remember every detail, but we do remember how people made us feel.
Very true. And speaking of feelings, our conversation today has made me think differently about weekends.
Me too. The more we talk about it, the more I realize that a good weekend isn't always about doing more. Sometimes it's about appreciating what's already there.
I think that's a perfect thought to carry into the next part of our conversation.
I agree, because what weekends reveal about our lives might be more interesting than we think.
You know, David, something surprised me during today's conversation. When we first started talking about weekend plans, I thought we'd spend most of our time discussing activities.
Me too. I thought we'd be talking about trips, hobbies, restaurants, and all the usual weekend stuff.
But somehow the conversation became much deeper than that.
It did. And I think that's because weekends aren't really about plans, they're about what those plans mean to us.
That's such an interesting way to look at it.
Think about it. People spend 5 days, sometimes 6 days, waiting for the weekend. It's only 2 days, but it carries so much emotional weight.
You're right. For many people, the weekend feels like a reward. It's a chance to breathe after a busy week.
And maybe that's why we put so much pressure on it. We expect those 2 days to fix everything.
I've definitely done that before. I've gone into a weekend feeling exhausted and secretly hoped that by Monday morning I'd feel like a completely different person.
I've done exactly the same thing, as if 2 days can magically solve every problem in our lives.
And when that doesn't happen, we feel disappointed.
Exactly. But maybe weekends aren't supposed to transform us.
Maybe they're simply supposed to support us.
I love that idea. Support us, not transform us.
Because when I look back, the weekends I remember most weren't life-changing, they were just meaningful in small ways.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A few years ago, I had a really stressful period at work. One Saturday morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and sat by a window while it was raining outside.
That sounds peaceful already.
It was. I didn't do anything productive, I didn't accomplish anything impressive, but for the first time in weeks, my mind felt calm.
And that's the memory that stayed with you.
Exactly. Not because it was exciting, because it was exactly what I needed.
I think that's something many people forget. Sometimes the most valuable moments don't look important while they're happening.
Wow, that's very true.
One of my favorite weekends was surprisingly ordinary. I spent most of it at home. I read a book, cleaned a little, called a friend I hadn't spoken to in months, and went for a walk before sunset.
That sounds lovely.
The funny thing is, if someone asked me what I did that weekend, my answer would sound boring. But if they asked me how I felt, my answer would be completely different.
That's such a powerful distinction. What we did versus how we felt.
Exactly. And when I think about happiness, I realize I care much more about the second one.
Me too. I think a lot of adults eventually reach that point. When we're younger, we're chasing experiences. As we get older, we're often chasing peace.
And peace can be surprisingly difficult to find.
Especially in a world that's always moving. There's always another message to answer, another task to complete, another thing demanding attention.
Which makes those quiet moments even more valuable.
Absolutely. And honestly, today's conversation helped me realize something.
What's that?
I've spent years asking myself, what should I do this weekend? But maybe a better question is, how do I want to feel this weekend?
Wow, I really like that.
Because the answer changes everything. If I want to feel rested, my plans will look different. If I want to feel connected, I'll spend time with people I care about. If I want to feel inspired, maybe I'll try something new.
That's such a thoughtful perspective. And honestly, I think our listeners can relate to that.
I hope so, because there's no perfect weekend formula, no universal checklist.
Just different people with different needs.
Exactly. And maybe that's the biggest lesson I've learned. A successful weekend isn't measured by how impressive it looks. It's measured by whether it gives you what you truly need.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you. And I have a feeling a lot of people listening right now are thinking about their own weekends.
I hope they are, because sometimes all it takes is a small shift in perspective to appreciate those ordinary moments a little more.
And often those ordinary moments become the memories we treasure most.
I couldn't agree more. Well, David, I have to say, this conversation made me smile. What started as a simple discussion about weekend plans turned into something much more meaningful.
I was thinking the same thing. At the beginning, I thought we'd just talk about what people do on Saturdays and Sundays, but somehow we ended up talking about happiness, expectations, and even personal growth.
And honestly, I think that's why I enjoy conversations like this. Sometimes the most ordinary topics reveal the most interesting things about our lives.
Exactly. A weekend is only a small part of the week, but it often tells us a lot about what we value.
You know what I'll remember from today's conversation?
What?
The idea that a good weekend doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to feel right for you.
I love that, because so many people spend their weekends comparing themselves to others.
That's true. We see photos, videos, and exciting stories online, and sometimes we wonder if we're doing enough.
Meanwhile, some of our happiest moments happen when nobody is watching.
Exactly. A quiet breakfast, a long walk, a conversation with someone you care about, a peaceful afternoon with no plans.
Honestly, those moments sound pretty wonderful to me.
Me too. And maybe that's something worth remembering as another weekend approaches.
Definitely. You don't need to fill every hour. You don't need a perfect schedule. And you certainly don't need to turn your weekend into a competition.
That's excellent advice.
Thank you. I might need to remind myself of it on Friday afternoon.
I think we all do sometimes.
You know, if there's one thing I hope listeners take away from today's episode, it's this: be kind to yourself.
That's beautiful.
Seriously, if you've had a difficult week, give yourself permission to rest. If you've been busy, give yourself permission to slow down. And if your weekend doesn't go according to plan, that's okay too.
Because some of the best moments are the ones we never planned.
Exactly. And often those unexpected moments become the memories we carry with us for years.
Before we go, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. What does your perfect weekend look like these days?
Has your idea of a good weekend changed over time?
Let us know in the comments. We genuinely enjoy reading your thoughts and experiences.
And if you enjoyed spending this time with us, don't forget to like the video.
And subscribe to the channel if you'd like more relaxed conversations like this.
We're so grateful that you chose to spend part of your day with us.
Whether you're listening on your way to work, relaxing at home, taking a walk, or planning your own weekend right now, thank you for being here.
We hope this conversation brought you a little comfort, a little encouragement, and maybe a new perspective.
And we'd hope your next weekend gives you exactly what you need. Not what social media says you need, not what other people expect, just what feels right for you.
That's a perfect way to end today's episode.
For once, I actually had a good ending.
You did. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'll be thinking about that all weekend.
Take care, everyone.
Have a wonderful week.
And we'll talk to you again very soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.